The unexpected meeting, the interstellar travel station, was crowded. Voices mixing with the sound of engines and endless announcements. Humans and aliens moved in all directions, carrying bags, speaking in different tongues. Some looked happy too. Travel. Others looked tired and nervous. Bright neon lights flashed across the giant hall, showing the names of departing ships. In the middle of this chaos stood a human man named Daniel. He was an ordinary traveler, wearing a simple jacket and holding a small bag. He had no plan for anything big to happen today. He only wanted to reach his destination quietly, but fate had something else waiting for him. While he stood in line, Daniel noticed an old alien at the ticket counter. The alien's skin was pale and wrinkled, his clothes torn and dusty. His large eyes looked weak, and his hands trembled as he searched his pockets. The clerk behind the counter spoke sharply. "You don't have enough credits. Move aside." The people behind started shouting, annoyed at the delay. The old alien lowered his head. "Please. I must reach that ship," he whispered. His voice cracked like dry wood. But no one listened. Some laughed, others rolled their eyes. Daniel felt something heavy in his chest. He had seen poverty on Earth, but here, in this giant station, no one cared. He stepped forward. "Wait," he said, reaching into his bag. He placed his card on the counter. "I'll pay for his ticket." The clerk looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "He owes 3 times the normal fare." Daniel nodded without hesitation. "Yes, I'll cover it." The alien slowly turned, his eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, his lips trembled. Then he spoke softly. "Human. You honor me." He took the ticket with shaking hands. "I owe you a debt greater than you know." Daniel smiled awkwardly. "It's nothing. Just get to your ship." He thought the moment would end there. Just an act of kindness. But something in the alien's eyes made him uneasy. The alien bowed slightly, then leaned closer. His voice was almost a whisper. "The stars remember kindness. The stars always answer." Daniel frowned. Not sure what that meant. The old alien slowly walked away toward the departure gates, disappearing into the crowd. Daniel was about to leave when the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The walls shook, lights flickered, and the massive glass ceiling above glowed with sudden brightness. People screamed. Alarms blared through the station. Security guards shouted, "Warning! Incoming ships detected." Daniel's heart pounded. He rushed to the window with dozens of others. Outside, in the endless dark of space, 3 enormous warships appeared, each one larger than the entire station. Black steel armor covered them. Glowing symbols marked their sides, and their engines burned with blue fire. The crowd panicked. Some shouted that war had come. Mothers pulled children close. Travelers dropped their bags and ran. Security forces armed their rifles and aimed at the sky. Daniel stood, frozen, his eyes locked on the impossible sight. Why had 3 elite warships suddenly arrived here? Then he saw something stranger. The old alien was no longer weak in his steps. He walked steadily toward the landing bay. His torn clothes fluttered as if the air itself moved around him. His head was high, and his eyes glowed faintly. The soldiers shouted orders, preparing for battle, but the old alien raised one frail hand. And suddenly, the 3 massive warships stopped moving, as if they obeyed his silent command. The crowd fell silent, fear mixed with awe. The only sound was the low hum of the warships. Waiting, Daniel felt his breath catch. He remembered the alien's words. "The stars remember kindness." The old alien slowly turned his head. And for a brief second, his glowing eyes met Daniel's. A strange calm spread over Daniel, mixed with a growing fear. Who was this old alien really? Why did warships obey him? And why did his simple act of paying for a ticket feel like the start of something much bigger? Daniel's life had always been normal, but in that moment, under the shadow of 3 elite warships. He realized it would never be the same again. The old alien pointed at the sky, and the warships lowered closer. Their engines shaking the air, sparks of energy danced across their hulls. The people around screamed. Security prepared for battle, but Daniel knew, deep inside, that this was not an attack. It was something else. Something tied to what he had done. The alien's voice, soft but powerful, echoed through the hall. Because of you, human. The stars return. Daniel's hands shook. His act of kindness had just changed the destiny of worlds. Asterisk. The arrival of the warships. The station shook again as the 3 giant warships moved closer. Their heavy shadows covered the glass dome, turning the bright lights of the hall into darkness. People screamed louder, their fear filling the air. Some ran toward the exits, some fell to their knees praying, others froze like statues. Daniel could barely breathe. The sight of the warships made his heart race. They looked like predators circling prey. Sharp edges and glowing engines cutting through the black sky. He had never seen anything so terrifying. Security officers shouted orders. Everyone away from the windows. This is a threat. Prepare weapons. The soldiers raised their rifles. Shaking hands betraying their fear, their commander barked at them to hold position. Yet the old alien walked calmly, his back straight, his movements slow but full of strange authority. He didn't hide, didn't run. He headed toward the landing. Bay as if this chaos had nothing to do with him. Daniel pushed through the panicked crowd, trying to see clearly. He couldn't stop watching the alien. Something about him had changed. The weak-old creature who had begged for help at the ticket counter now seemed like a figure carved from stone. Steady, unshaken, a deep rumble echoed. And the center warship opened a massive hangar door. Blue light poured out like the glow of another sun. The sound was deafening. Machines roared, metal shifted, and the entire station trembled under the pressure. The commander screamed, "Aim! Don't let them dock." But before the soldiers could fire, the old alien raised his hand. It was such a simple gesture. Just one frail hand lifted into the air. But instantly, every warship froze in space. The roaring engines became silent. The glow dimmed, and the endless vibration stopped. The air became heavy with quiet. Daniel's stomach turned cold. He realized what this meant. Those massive ships had obeyed him. Obeyed the weak old alien everyone had mocked only minutes ago. The alien lowered his hand and looked toward the soldiers. His voice was calm, but carried across the hall. "Put down your weapons. They are not your enemy." The soldiers hesitated. Glancing at each other, their commander shouted, "Do not listen to him. He's manipulating us." But his voice cracked, betraying doubt. Daniel saw how the alien's eyes glowed softly, like 2 dim stars holding great power. His wrinkled face no longer looked pitiful. Instead, it carried the weight of age, of history, of authority hidden for years. Slowly, step by step, the alien reached the docking gate. The doors slid open with a hiss, and cold air rushed in. A group of armored figures marched inside. They were tall, with silver armor that gleamed under the lights, helmets shaped like predators, weapons glowing faintly at their sides. The entire station gasped. Soldiers raised their rifles again. But no one fired, because the armored aliens dropped to one knee before the old alien. Their voices echoed together. "Commander, we have found you." Daniel felt his heart stop. "Commander." This frail old alien was a commander of elite warriors. The old alien placed a trembling hand on the shoulder of the nearest soldier. "You came. After all this time," he whispered, his voice cracked with emotion. But his back remained straight. The armored soldiers bowed lower. "We never stopped searching. The fleet has awaited your return." The crowd whispered, fear turning into confusion. Some muttered about legends. Others swore it was impossible. Daniel pressed his hand against the glass wall. He couldn't look away. He remembered how no one had wanted to help the alien, how people had laughed. And yet, here stood a commander, with warships obeying his signal. The old alien turned his head slightly. His glowing eyes met Daniel's again. "Your kindness has been answered, human," he said softly. Though the distance was great, Daniel felt as if the words were meant only for him. The commander of the station finally broke, shouting, "This is a threat to human safety. Arrest him, now, soldiers." Moved forward, weapons shaking. But the alien warriors rose at once, their glowing weapons pointing back. The air buzzed with deadly energy. The hall turned silent again. A single mistake could start a massacre. Daniel's mind spun. He wanted to scream for everyone to stop. But his voice caught in his throat. He could only watch as the two sides faced each other. Human soldiers trembling, alien warriors calm, and in the middle stood the old alien. Steady as a mountain, the alien raised his hand once more, not in anger, but in peace. "There will be no battle here," he said firmly. "I did not come for war. I came because of one man's kindness." He turned fully toward Daniel now. The crowd parted slightly, eyes following the line of the alien's gaze. Daniel's heart raced as everyone suddenly looked at him, confused and suspicious. The alien's voice deepened, carrying through the hall. "This human gave what others would not. He gave without asking. He gave when I had nothing. And because of that, the stars themselves moved." Daniel swallowed hard, his legs shaking. He never wanted attention. He never wanted power. But now hundreds of eyes stared at him. And 3 massive warships floated above because of what he had done. The alien commander looked back at his kneeling soldiers. "Prepare the fleet. The time of hiding is over." The armored warriors stood as one, weapons glowing brighter. The warship shifted, engines igniting once more. Their deep hum filled the skies above. Daniel gripped his bag tightly, sweat on his palms. He whispered to himself, "What have I done?" Outside the windows, the 3 warships aligned in perfect formation. Waiting for their commander's next order, the stars burned brightly behind them, as if watching, as if waiting, and Daniel realized this was only the beginning of something far greater than he could imagine. The revelation in the hall was filled with whispers. Thousands of eyes remained locked on the old alien and the 3 warships floating above. Daniel stood frozen, his heart still pounding in his chest. He had only paid for a ticket, but now the entire station treated him like a piece of a great mystery. The alien commander raised his hand, and the armored soldiers behind him stepped back, their glowing weapons lowering in discipline. Their silence was not weakness, but respect. It was the kind of silence soldiers gave only to leaders they truly trusted. The station commander still shouted orders, his voice shaking. "Arrest him! Arrest that alien! We cannot allow this." But no soldier moved forward. They were too afraid, and some even seemed doubtful now. The old alien's eyes glowed brighter. His voice, calm but filled with strength, echoed through the air. "You call me a stranger, but long before your kind even walked the stars. I was known across 1,000 worlds." The crowd gasped. Some aliens in the station lowered their heads, as if they already recognized him. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered under his breath, "Who are you?" The alien turned slowly toward him. "You may call me Kale," he said. His wrinkled hands lifted slightly, and the giant warships outside shifted in formation, responding to his will. Once, I was a commander of the Eternal Guard, sworn to protect the peace between empires, but I was betrayed, cast out, and left to wander. My people believed me dead. My enemies hunted me, until only shadows and dust became my companions. His voice shook for a moment, but then it grew firm again. For decades, I walked among stars with no name. I lost everything, until today. when one human offered me what no army ever did, kindness without reason. Daniel's throat went dry. He wanted to speak, but words stuck inside him. The crowd shifted. Some staring at him with awe, others with jealousy or suspicion. Kale's. Soldiers struck their fists against their armored chests. The sound echoed like thunder. "Commander Kale, Commander Kale," they chanted. Their loyalty was clear. The human station commander paled. He hissed into his comms, "We must contact High Command." This is bigger than us, but his voice was lost under the chants of the alien soldiers. Kale turned his gaze to Daniel again. His eyes softened for a brief moment. "Human, do you understand what you have done? A single act of mercy has woken a fire hidden for centuries. These ships, these warriors, they answer to me, but now they also watch you." Daniel shook his head quickly. "I didn't mean for any of this. I just wanted to help." Kale stepped closer. His frail figure still looked old, but his presence filled the hall with weight. "That is why it matters. You gave when you did not have to. That is why the stars answered." Suddenly, the massive screens of the station flickered. An urgent warning appeared. Enemy fleet approaching. Multiple ships entering orbit. The crowd panicked again. Soldiers ran to their positions. Alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed across the walls. Kale's soldiers remained calm. They raised their weapons, their silver armor glowing under the alarms. Their voices were steady. "The betrayers come, Commander. They have found us." Kale closed his eyes for a moment. His face tightened with old pain. "Yes, they would come. They always feared my return." Daniel felt his stomach twist. He turned to Kale. "They're coming. For you, aren't they?" Kale nodded slowly. "And now, because of your act, they will see you as part of me. You are no longer separate from this path." Daniel's knees weakened. His mind screamed to run, to escape this madness, but his heart told him there was no way back. The moment he helped Kale, his fate had already been written. The warships outside turned their weapons, beams of energy glowing in the dark. The station shook again as enemy ships appeared in orbit. Dozens of them. Their designs were sharp, cruel, like knives cutting through space. The crowd screamed. Some tried to flee, but doors locked shut as security systems activated. The station was trapped. Kale raised his hand. His voice was calm, yet heavy with command. "Stand ready, Eternal Guard. The betrayers will not break us today." The soldiers struck their chests again, their voices shaking the hall. For the commander, for the guard, Daniel pressed himself against the wall, his mind racing. He had been a simple man, but now he was inside a storm of war. Leaders, soldiers, fleets, all because of one simple choice. Kale looked at him one last time. His words rolled like thunder, yet carried warmth. "Do not fear, human. You are part of this now, and soon you will see the truth. You are not here." By accident, the station trembled again as the enemy fleet drew closer. Lights from their weapons lit the sky outside. The 3 warships above the station shifted into battle formation. Engines roaring, Kale lifted both hands. His old body shook, but his voice did not. "Today, the galaxy will remember. The commander has returned." Daniel's breath came fast. He realized the old alien was no ordinary traveler. He was someone powerful, someone hunted, someone who had now dragged Daniel into his fate. And as the first blasts of energy lit the darkness of space, Daniel understood that his life would never again be ordinary. The test of trust the station was locked in chaos. Enemy ships circled above, their weapons glowing like burning suns. The 3 elite warships of the Eternal Guard held position. Standing as shields above the trembling glass dome, Daniel pressed, his back against the wall, his breathing sharp. He could not believe this was real. Only hours ago, he had been an ordinary man with nothing more on his mind than travel. Now fleets of war gathered, and his name was whispered as if he was part of some destiny. Kale, the old alien commander, walked toward him. His steps were steady, his eyes burning with strange light. "Human," Kale said softly, "you must come with me." Daniel shook his head. "No, I can't. I don't belong in this. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a leader. I'm just—" Kale raised a hand and silenced him. "It is not about what you were. It is about what you are now. The moment you chose to help me, you changed your path." Daniel felt trapped. The soldiers around Kale bowed their heads as the commander spoke. They didn't question him. They trusted him completely. But Daniel? He had only known this alien for minutes. Why should he risk his life for him? Kale seemed to sense the storm inside Daniel's mind. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I was betrayed once because I trusted the wrong people. That mistake destroyed empires. Now the stars test me again. They ask me if I can trust you. Can I, human?" Daniel's chest tightened. His throat felt dry. "Why me?" he whispered. Kale placed a trembling hand over his own chest. "Because you gave when no one else did. You had nothing to gain. You had no reason to help. Yet you did. That is worth more than fleets. That is worth more than crowns." Before Daniel could answer, the station shook violently. Explosions roared outside as the enemy fleet fired warning shots. Red alarms flashed across the hall. Soldiers screamed orders. People panicked. Kale's warriors formed a wall around their commander. Their silver armor glowed as they prepared. For battle, the enemy was coming, and soon there would be no choice but to fight. Kale turned sharply to Daniel. "If you stay here, you will die with them. If you come with me, you may live. You may also carry something greater. The choice is yours." Daniel hesitated. His mind screamed to stay behind, to hide, to deny all of this. But another voice whispered, he stayed. Innocent people would die. If he went, maybe he could understand why this had all fallen on him. "Why should I trust you?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking. Kale's eyes softened for the first time. "Because I have nothing else left but trust. I am old, I am hunted, and yet my people bow to me. They believe I am still worthy, but I cannot walk this path alone. I need someone who carries no chains of power. Someone whose heart still remembers kindness. That is you." Daniel closed his eyes. His hands trembled. He thought of the moment at the counter. The way people had laughed at the alien. The way Kale had looked so broken. He had stepped forward then, and without knowing why, he stepped forward again. "I'll go," Daniel said quietly. Kale's lips curved into a small smile. "Then the stars have chosen well." The Eternal Guard led them toward the docking gates beyond the glass walls. Enemy ships grew larger. Their weapons aimed at the station. Kale's 3 warships turned. Slowly, ready for battle. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. As they walked through the metal halls, he whispered, "They'll kill us if we fight them." Kale shook his head. "Not if they believe in you." Daniel blinked. "Me?" "Yes, you," Kale said. "The enemies know me. They hate me. They fear me. But you, they do not know you. That makes you powerful. A voice they cannot predict." The words hit Daniel harder than the alarms. He wanted to laugh at the absurdity. He was no leader, no fighter, just a man with a bag. Yet Kale's faith in him was heavier than the sound of enemy cannons. They entered the hangar where one of the Eternal Guard warships had docked. The ramp opened with a hiss of steam. The inside glowed with pale blue lights, strange symbols covering the walls. Daniel hesitated at the threshold, his heart screaming to turn back. Kale looked at him. "Step forward, human. This is your test of trust. Trust me, and you will see what you were meant to see. Refuse, and the galaxy will burn without you knowing why." The hangar shook violently again. Enemy fire struck the outer shields. Soldiers shouted for haste. The ramp hissed, closing soon. Daniel clenched his fists. He had already crossed a line when he paid for Cale's ticket. He could not turn away now. With a shaky breath, he stepped onto the ramp. The Eternal Guard bowed slightly as he passed. Not mockery, not doubt, but respect. Daniel's chest tightened. He had never felt anything like it. As the warship doors sealed behind them, Cale placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have chosen. Now the stars will test us both." The engines roared. The warship lifted. And Daniel felt his stomach drop. Through the window, he saw the station. Shrinking, the enemy fleet surrounding them, and ahead, Cale's 3 elite warships waited. Glowing like guardians in the dark, the test of trust had begun. The threat revealed, the warship roared as it left the station. Daniel gripped the railing tightly, his stomach twisting as the floor shook beneath his feet. Outside the glass viewports, stars blurred into streaks of light as the engines carried them away from danger. For a moment, he thought they had escaped, but Cale stood at the center of the command deck, his eyes glowing faintly. His voice was calm, yet heavy with warning. "Do not relax. The true enemy is already here, Daniel." Turned sharply. "You mean the ships that attacked the station?" Cale shook his head slowly. "Those were only scouts, shadows sent to test us. The real fleet will follow soon." The Eternal Guard moved with strict discipline. Armored soldiers pressing glowing symbols across the panels. Strange alien characters lit up on the screens. Daniel could not read them, but he could feel the tension in the air. The captain of the warship approached Cale. Kneeling briefly, "Commander, reports confirm more enemy signatures detected. Dozens, maybe hundreds. They are preparing to surround us." The room fell silent. Daniel's chest tightened. His voice cracked. "Hundreds. Against just 3 ships. That's suicide." Cale closed his eyes for a moment. "They fear my return. They will not allow me to rise again. To them, my existence is the greatest threat, even more than an army." Daniel's voice shook. "But why? You're just one. Man, one." Alien Cale's eyes burned brighter as he looked at him, because one voice can turn silence into fire. One act of kindness can change the course of stars. They know this. That is why they fear us. That is why they fear you now. Daniel froze. "Me. I didn't do anything. I just bought a ticket." Cale stepped closer, his hand resting firmly on Daniel's shoulder. "And yet the universe moved. Do you still not see? The guard returned when you showed mercy. The warships listened when you stood by me. You have become a symbol they cannot allow to live." Daniel's breath caught. His knees felt weak. "So now they'll come for me too." Cale nodded slowly. "Yes, they will not stop until either I am gone or you are broken. That is their way." Suddenly the alarms blared. The deck flashed with red lights. A voice shouted, "Enemy fleet approaching." Bearing down fast, Daniel turned toward the windows. His stomach dropped. In the distance, dozens of dark ships emerged from the void. Their designs sharp and cruel, like jagged knives cutting through space. Their engines glowed red, and their formation was tight, precise, deadly. The Eternal Guard moved quickly, forming defense lines across the deck. Their silver armor reflected the flashing lights, their glowing weapons ready. The captain turned to Cale. "Commander, orders." Cale's voice was steady. "Form the tri-shield. Protect the human at all costs." Daniel's eyes widened. "Wait, me? Why protect me? I can't fight. I'm useless here." Cale shook his head firmly. "You are not useless. They already see you as part of this war. Your survival matters more than you understand." The 3 warships outside shifted into formation. Energy shields shimmered across their hulls, glowing bright against the blackness. The enemy ships broke formation, circling like predators ready to strike. Daniel's heart pounded. He whispered, "We're going to die." Cale turned to him sharply. "Not if you believe. Do you trust me, human?" Daniel hesitated. His throat felt tight. I don't know." Cale's voice rose with strength. "You chose to walk this path. Trust is not half. Trust is whole. Stand with me now, or fall with doubt." Before Daniel could reply, the first blast came. A beam of red energy tore across space, slamming into the guards' shields. The warship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Soldiers staggered, but held their ground. Shields at 60%. A voice shouted, "Another blast hit," then another. The enemy fleet unleashed a storm of fire. Dozens of beams crashing into the shields, shaking the entire ship. Daniel fell to his knees. Covering his head, Cale stood, tall, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line, eternal guard. Do not break. The betrayers will test us, but we will not fall today." The soldiers roared back as one, their voices echoing like thunder. "For the commander! For the guard!" Daniel forced himself to stand, gripping the railing. His eyes locked on the old alien who refused to bow to fear. Cale looked fragile, his body old, but his presence filled the entire deck. He was a storm in the middle of fire. For the first time, Daniel wondered if he too could stand. If he too could be more than fear. Then the captain shouted again, "Commander, enemy reinforcements incoming. More ships arriving. They outnumber us 20-1. Daniel's breath hitched. "We can't win this. We can't." Cale's eyes glowed brighter. His voice was calm, almost like a whisper of steel. "Then we do not win by numbers. We win by faith. We win by what they cannot understand. The strength of a human heart." Daniel stared at him, confusion mixing with fear. What does that even mean? Cale placed a hand on Daniel's chest. "You will see soon, but first you must speak. They will not listen to me, but they may listen to you." Daniel froze. "Me? Speak to them. To an enemy fleet." Cale nodded. "Yes, they will not expect it, and in that moment, you may change everything." The deck shook again as another blast slammed into their shields. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed. Yet all Daniel could hear were Cale's words echoing in his mind. The enemy fleet loomed closer, their weapons glowing brighter, ready to finish the fight. Daniel's throat went dry. His mind raced, but deep inside, a spark of courage flickered. Maybe, just maybe, Cale was right. The human's choice. The command deck shook again as another blast slammed into the shields. Sparks flew from the panels, alarms screamed. Soldiers shouted updates while gripping their weapons. Daniel held onto the railing, his heart racing so fast he thought it might break. Cale stood calm in the middle of the chaos, his glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. Now is the moment. Human, you must choose. Daniel's mouth went dry. Choose. Choose what? Cale's voice was steady. To stay as you are, an ordinary traveler lost in fear, or to rise, to stand before them and speak. If you do, the enemy may hesitate. If you do not, they will destroy us all. Daniel's mind spun. His thoughts screamed that this was madness. He was no commander, no hero, just a man who had tried to help a stranger. Now fleets of war circled, and somehow they wanted him to speak. The captain shouted, "Shields down to 40%. Commander, we cannot hold much longer." Daniel clutched his chest. His legs shook. He turned to Cale. "Why me? Why not you? You're the one they fear." Cale's face hardened. "Exactly. They know me. They already made their choice about me. To them, I am a relic, an enemy, a danger that must be erased. But you are new, you are human, a voice they did not prepare for, and that makes you powerful." Daniel swallowed hard. I don't even know what to say. Cale stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. His voice lowered, gentle but unshakable. Speak from truth. Speak from what you felt when you helped me. That is what they cannot destroy. That is what will break their chains. Daniel's stomach twisted. His fear screamed for him to refuse, to hide, to let someone else carry the weight. But deep inside, another feeling grew, a fire he could not ignore. He thought of how everyone had laughed at Cale at the station, how no one cared, how he had almost walked away if he had not stopped. Cale would have been left to suffer alone. The ship rocked again. The captain yelled, "Shields failing, Commander." One more hit and we are finished. Cale's voice rose above the alarms. Firm and commanding, human. Decide. Do you stand or do you fall? Daniel closed his eyes. His breath shook. He whispered to himself, "If I run now, I'll never forgive myself." He opened his eyes, looked at Cale, and nodded. "I'll do it." Cale smiled faintly, his face filled with pride and relief. "Then the stars themselves will hear you." The soldiers quickly opened a channel. A comms activated, and Daniel's face appeared on screens across the fleet, both ally and enemy. For a moment, silence spread. Enemy weapons paused, glowing. But not yet fired. Daniel's throat was dry, his palms sweaty. He gripped the edge of the console and forced his voice to come out. I know you see me as nothing," Daniel began, his voice trembling. "I'm just a human, not a soldier, not a commander. I don't have fleets or power, but I did something simple. I helped someone when everyone else turned away. That is all. I did, and because of that, you are here. Because of that, Cale stands again. And if you fear that, then you are weaker than you pretend to be." The deck was silent. Even the alarms seemed softer for a moment. Cale's glowing eyes stayed fixed on him, urging him to continue. Daniel's voice grew stronger. "You think warships and armies make you powerful, but you're wrong. True power is when you choose kindness. When you help without asking. I am no one, yet my choice has moved fleets. If that frightens you, then maybe you know the truth already. You cannot win, not against." The enemy ships held position. No blasts fired. The crews hesitated. Their commanders did not expect this. A human speaking boldly across the stars. The captain whispered, "They're hesitating." "Commander, he's reaching them." Cale's soldiers struck their chests, voices rising, for the human, for the commander. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had never heard voices rise for him, never felt so much weight, yet also so much strength. His fear turned into fire. He leaned closer to the comms. His voice firm now. "If you attack us, you will prove only that you are cowards. Afraid of one old man and one human with nothing but words. But if you stop, if you listen, then maybe there is still hope for all of us. Maybe the galaxy doesn't have to bleed anymore." The words echoed into the void. Enemy ships floated silently, their weapons still glowing but unmoving. The silence was heavy, tense, stretching like a blade ready to fall. Then, slowly, one of the enemy ships lowered its weapons. The glow faded, another followed, and then another. Until half the fleet had dimmed their weapons, the deck erupted in gasps. The captain shouted, "They're standing down. Some of them are standing down." Cale's face softened, pride shining. In his glowing eyes, he whispered, "The stars have listened. The choice was yours, and you have spoken well." But not all the ships lowered their weapons. Some still burned red with fire, commanders unwilling to bow. The battle was not yet over. Daniel looked at Cale, his voice trembling again. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." Cale placed both hands on his shoulders, his voice deep and certain. "You already did more than I could. You gave them doubt. And doubt is the first crack in any wall." The alarms blared again as the remaining enemy ships prepared to fire. The moment of peace was fragile, ready to shatter, and Daniel realized his choice was not over. It had only begun. The legacy of kindness, the silence after Daniel's speech, felt heavier than the explosions. The enemy fleet floated like statues in the dark, half with weapons lowered, half still burning red with fire. Every second stretched longer, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Daniel's legs shook as he stood before the coms. His throat ached from speaking. His palms were wet with sweat. He whispered, "Did it work? Did I really stop them?" Kale's glowing eyes softened. "You did more than I thought possible, human. You showed them something they had forgotten." But remember, not all hearts can be turned with words, as if to prove him right. The deck shook violently. A blast of red energy smashed against their shields. Sparks flew across the command deck. Soldiers staggered but did not fall. The enemy ships that still burned refused to surrender. The captain shouted, "Shields at 20%. Another hit, and we're finished. Kale's warriors slammed their fists against their armored chests. "For the commander, for the human," they cried. Their voices were thunder in the storm. Daniel gripped the console tightly. His heart screamed for him to run, to hide. But another voice inside told him to stand. If he gave up now, all his words would mean nothing. He looked at Kale. "What do we do?" "We can't survive another hit." Kale turned toward the viewport, his frail hand rising slowly. "Then we do not hide. We show them what we are." His voice grew stronger, deeper, filled with command. "Eternal Guard. Form the final shield." The 3 warships outside moved at once, shifting into a triangle around the enemy fire. Their shields overlapped, glowing brighter than before. Energy surged between them, forming a blazing wall of light. The enemy ships fired again, beams crashing into the barrier, but the shields held, the light burning brighter. The station behind them was safe, at least for the moment. Daniel's breath caught. "They're protecting the station, even when they're outnumbered." Kale nodded. "Because that is what the Guard was made for, to protect, not to conquer. That is why we must stand." The coms crackled, and a voice from the enemy fleet filled the deck, harsh and bitter. "Kale, you are a ghost. You should have stayed dead. This galaxy has no place for you, nor for your human pet." Daniel flinched at the words, but Kale only smiled faintly. "You fear him, don't you? Fear that one human with no power could speak and make your soldiers doubt." The enemy voice spat with anger. "We will erase him, just as we will erase you." Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of running, but instead, he stepped closer to the coms again. His voice shook, but did not break. "You can kill me if you want, but it won't change anything. You can destroy this ship. But you can't destroy the truth that kindness is stronger than fear. That's why half your fleet refused to fire. That's why you've already lost." The deck went silent again. Kale's soldiers stared at him, their eyes wide with respect. The captain whispered, "He speaks like one of us now." Kale placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Not one of us. Greater, because he has no armor, no rank, only truth." Outside, more enemy ships began to lower their weapons. Slowly, one by one, the red glow dimmed, until only a handful still burned with hate. Their commanders too proud to bow. Kale's voice was heavy but calm. "They will not stop. They will die with their pride. But the others have heard you. They will not fight." The remaining enemy ships surged forward, firing their weapons wildly. Kale's 3 warships held the line, shields trembling, beams clashing with fire. The sky lit up with a storm of light. Daniel thought his chest would burst. He shouted into the comms, "Stop. Don't waste more lives. This war ends now." And for the first time, the attacking ships faltered. One by one, they turned and fled, vanishing into the dark. Only wreckage and silence remained. The deck erupted with cheers. Soldiers raised their weapons in salute, for the human, for the commander. Their voices thundered. Daniel staggered back, his body weak. His heart racing, he whispered, "I can't believe this. I can't believe they listened." Cale smiled, his glowing eyes soft. "Believe it, human. For today you showed them that kindness can break even the sharpest blade. You changed what I could not. You gave hope to stars that had long forgotten it." The captain turned to Cale, bowing deeply. "Commander, the fleets are retreating. Victory is ours." Cale shook his head gently. "No, not victory. Not yet. Today is not about war. Today is about survival, and about a human who reminded the galaxy of what truly matters." He turned to Daniel, his voice soft but filled with weight. "This is your legacy now. The stars will remember you, not as a warrior, not as a king, but as the human who gave without asking, and through that act, saved countless lives." Daniel's throat tightened. His eyes stung. He had never wanted greatness. He had never wanted destiny. Yet here he stood, fleets silenced, lives spared. All because he had once paid for an old alien's ticket. Cale leaned closer, whispering words only he could hear. "This is only the beginning. Human, the galaxy will call on you again, and when it does, I pray you will answer." The warships aligned, their engines roaring softly. The stars stretched endless before them, silent witnesses to what had just happened. And as Daniel stared into that endless sky, he realized his life would never again be ordinary. He was no longer just a traveler. He was part of something greater, something that would echo forever. The legacy of kindness had begun.